In May to December, over on BBC One, in just over 5 minutes, Eve Matheson and Anton Rogers are filling in the generation gap. That's except for viewers in Northern Ireland. Here on BBC Two now, our new series, Notes in the Margin 1980 to 1989, starting with writer Angela Phillips' personal view on fathers in the 80s.
How do you feel, sir?
It's a bit difficult to tell at the moment.
How do you feel?
I'm obviously relieved and delighted. It's marvellous. It's rather a grown-up thing, I find. Rather a shock to my system.
How's the baby like?
He's in marvellous form.
You're my love, you're my angel, you're the girl of my dreams. And I'd like to thank you for waiting patiently. Daddy's home.
One boost for morale today. First pictures of Richard Branson's new baby son, born last night. Branson had hoped to be back for the birth, but the baby won that race by 2.5 days. All that's left now is the record.
Oh, I've waited for this moment to be by your side. Your best friend wrote and told me you had teardrops in your eyes. Daddy's home. Daddy's home.
My name is Oliver North, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps. My best friend is my wife, Betsy, to whom I have been married for 19 years and with whom I have had 4 wonderful children.
A Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday went by. Was
It's a quiet family day. I think that's the way to describe it.
all I could do was cry. But I made a promise that you'd treasure.
Then we shall have a country that really is
And I made it back
against socialism.
home to you.
And then we really will have won the battle for Britain.
Waited for this moment to be by your side.
I'm having a bruise in my body. There's not a bruise on me. The only thing that's sore is my eyes. He turned his right hand over, bang, and it couldn't.
Tell your dad you love him, because he's missing you like mad. Yeah. Go on then. She has to go over and talk to you there, Frank. Go
I
on.
love you as well, darling. You be good for mommy.
Okay. And they wish you luck in the fight, Dad. You better go over and say bye-bye to Dad. Good luck in the fight. They'll see you soon. Bye-bye. And
Bye-bye, Nicola. Be good and give mommy a kiss for me, yeah?
yeah.
Women fought for their rights in the 70s. In the 80s, we were meant to use them.
Now we can run a company, a car and a home, while not forgetting to give vitamins to the children, managing to put a gourmet meal in the microwave, and attend parents' meetings at school. While women have been moving mountains, what have men been doing? What happened to that 1980s concept, a new man?
We've all heard of the working mother, but what about the working father? Where is he?
At the start of the 80s, I was living in London, I was single, enjoying myself, working in advertising even then. I certainly had no intention of getting married and none whatsoever of having children. That all changed in about 1982 when I met Helen, we got married, and in fact I inherited 2 stepchildren. And then in 1986, we had a little daughter of our own. One of the consequences of the job I do, I'm a group account director at Saatchi & Saatchi, is one has to be prepared to work fairly long hours. 12-hour days are not uncommon. which means it's sometimes quite difficult during the week to not only to see your wife, but to see your children.
Sarchi, good morning.
Andrew Stanbridge is very much the man of the 80s. Hard-working and successful, he drives a Porsche, wears Brooks Brothers shirts, and works right at the heart of the image-making business.
The modern man is in a state of flux. His conventional role that's been defined over years and years of communication, and as he himself has defined it, is changing. The reason it's changing is, one, how women are changing and how they're responding to the modern world, and how the modern world around him is changing. How the environment and being concerned with other things is bearing down upon him. For instance, in an Audi commercial, we show a man who is on his way to a dramatic event. That dramatic event turns out to be the birth of his baby. He is actually a family man, and he obviously does things for his family. We see him looking after his child, we see him in command of that situation, going to see the birth of his child.
Vorsprung durch Technik, as both your head and your heart would say.
I think the thing that's interesting about that commercial is that I mean, cars essentially were seen as a male preserve. I mean, men drove them, men purchased them. And what we're changing there is the idea that here is a man who is actually considering more than just himself.
At the moment, men are in retreat somewhat. There's been a lot of talk about the new man who will be taking over a lot of women's roles. I think we're a long way off from that yet, and I think the problem that men have got at the moment is they don't quite know what to do. They see women becoming more important as individuals, becoming more important at work, more important in society, and I think we haven't yet adjusted to that, and we probably yet don't know how to adjust. That's the problem that I think men face.
Men with men have often been very emotionally inexpressive, and I would argue that part of what explains a new man is that he is more emotionally expressive with his male friends.
We few, we happy few.
GQ has emerged really as a magazine for and about the new man. For instance, in this issue we have a piece by a divorced man talking about the anguish of only seeing his children at weekends, the kind of personal, emotional piece that you wouldn't expect a man to be writing or expressing. And in the sort of visuals, here we have a picture of a very stylish young man with his baby. Now, again, in the past, men wouldn't have been happy being seen with a baby in this way. It would have been seen to be effeminate. They should be in the office, they should be dynamic or whatever. But over these past few years, there's been a significant move towards men being more comfortable with the whole idea of parenting.
And I'll just shoot. Now, walk, no, I want you to look where you're going first. Walk right, just listen. Walk right. Now straight. Out. Right, diagonally out, darling. To the right, kneel. Kneel? Go on, kneel. Yes, you can, just kneel. Go on, back.
I'm a young boy.
Come on, back.
At the age of 5, my mother child will be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21.
The mother care man, aimed straight at the heart of modern woman, set a trend for the daddy-baby fashion duos which are currently all the rage. Male model Matt Cannon, with his baby Florence, is very much in demand today. The new man made flesh, the macho man with a marshmallow centre. So did the 80s see a profound change in male behaviour? Or are these beautiful babies being offered as mere accessories for the man who has everything? Before the mid-80s, you wouldn't have seen images like these. I wonder whether these seductively caring men were actually invented for the consumption of women, the 1980s equivalent of the tall, dark stranger in a tweed jacket.
Sitting on the outside, just me and my mate. You know I made the moon, honey. Come up 2 hours late. Wasn't that a man? I spelled him A-child.
I don't think it's being, dare I say, pushed and hyped because of lack of alternative. Because men have had great fun the last few years, I guess we all have, but it's really not the time in social and viral history to be a bachelor, or dare I say a bachelor gay. And really fatherhood, which I probably think is wonderful, is one of the few alternatives left to men who might not have leapt into it. I don't think it's an emotional sudden wave of men. I think it's a reaction to something else.
Yes, I think it's probably two things. One, it is reacting to society in terms of being sexually promiscuous. You just cannot do it anymore. So one looks for other outlets, and there's the family and having children. I think also it's a fact of life that men are working longer hours. They're starting earlier, they're finishing later. They just get tired. They get very, very tired. And in fact, being promiscuous at night and going out and having a good time, you're too tired to do anything. Actually, going home and staying with your family and being surrounded by your family is terribly pleasurable. Having to go out at 8 or 9 o'clock at night and be hip and promiscuous, you're too tired. If I'm home at 7, that's excellent. It's probably nearer to 8 o'clock. And in the ideal world, I just have a chance to say goodnight to my daughters. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Continue with the Conservative Party to build on the great open site of human freedom, the homes, the families, the values, the enterprises, in a word, the good society. For it is that which can bring a little bit of heaven on earth.
In Britain in the 80s, heaven on earth looked something like this, and that new man was more evident in the ads than in the home. Most mothers still stop paid work completely for a period when a baby is born. In the 1980s, however, there was a sharp increase in the number of women with young children returning to paid work. But it was mostly part-time work to which they returned because, just like their mothers and grandmothers before them, they continued to service their children, home and partners. Indeed, the government survey of social trends said part-time workers have the worst of both worlds, extra responsibility outside the home and little help within. The arrival of a baby has very little effect on a man's working life.
No, not very.
Apart from a few days off the birth, he will quickly return to the old routine.
Which meant that I got to the office at about 10:30, which was a bit of a nuisance, really, because I was supposed to have a board.
If there is a change, it's towards spending even more hours at work.
Now I haven't got an office to move into.
When men do spend time alone with their kids, it's in order to let mum work a twilight or weekend shift. But they usually make sure they get their dinner before she leaves.
What's this? Liver again? Oh, my God. Why can't you get something decent for dinner?
I don't think there's evidence of men doing that much more. I think what they do is they're there at the birth. They were missing out before. They're there at the birth. They do change the odd nappy, and you can see them on Saturday sometimes wheeling their children around Sainsbury's. I don't know that there's really much evidence that they are doing more.
Well, I can wash out 44 pairs of socks to have them on the line. You know, I can start you 2 dozen shirts, but you can count from 1 to 9.
notion of chores is a red herring. I think that all of these 70s ideas of who would do the washing up and who would dry the dishes have been rendered completely irrelevant by the fact that the two-career couple, which was what emerged, can afford either the service or the appliances that do those tasks for them. Who does the washing up in the two-career couple? The dishwasher does it. Who does the cleaning and the hoovering? The cleaning lady does it. If there's one significant exchange, it's women moving into the office and men moving into the nursery, and that's the only significant crossover that has occurred.
It's common for the dual-career family to be portrayed in this way, as typical of the 1980s, and as the place where you might expect to find equality in the home. In fact, it's still pretty unusual for British mothers to work full-time, but those who do still end up with a major responsibility for domestic labour, often getting up early to get housework out of the way before going out, and almost always arriving home earlier to take over the care of the children in the evening.
How are you? All right, hello.
11-hour working days are typical for dual-career dads, and one survey shows that these fathers spend, on average, only 6 hours a week alone with their children.
You're looking sharp, you're looking good, you've come so far. We know how to make the most of who you are. Father to son, it's what we've always done.
Goodbye.
For about 7,000 years, the images that have been available to men to make them feel like real strong men have been gods and kings. And I suppose the image of the powerful, fatherly person who rules from without, from a great distance, is still very strong. The trap that fathers are in, it seems to me, is one of having to create power for themselves. And this they do by making money and then spending it on alcohol and aeroplanes, by which I mean the kind of things that men like to do, to get away from being in touch with ordinary human values, to get off the ground, to get out of touch. And this seems to me to be the dead end that men are in. And the world does not require this kind of male anymore, if it ever did.
We were just trying to throw each other off the stage.
Oh, yes, that doesn't sound very safe. So what needs to happen now is that men need to feel strong when they're at home with their children. In my view and in my experience, this is extremely difficult. It's actually much easier to be powerful at work, away from home, than it is to be powerful at home. Of course, I'm not saying that we need to remain powerful, but we need to feel strong enough and strong in ourselves to be proud of what we're doing. There's nothing like a 4-year-old to bring a man down to size. But I would like to say to men, be a real man, stay with your children. The importance of having a father at home is not just to have an extra pair of hands, but so that children can see what the differences are between their parents. And I'm not proposing that we should prescribe what those differences are. It seems to me they vary from one family to another, but they are there nonetheless. And without the father at home, some of the time, children simply don't know and have stereotyped ideas of what males should be like, and then they recreate and replicate the cycle that we're so familiar with, of men growing up behaving in stereotyped ways because they think that's manly.
Why must I be so lonely? So many people pass me by.
Tom Cowley had an advantage over many children. His father was very involved in his care. But how did this influence stand up to the impact of school and the continuing pressure to conform to the established stereotype of the tough male?
Well, at primary school I was a sort of a wimp, so I felt when I was going to secondary school, I really felt I wanted to sort of avoid all the bullying side of things and try and, well, toughen up my image a bit by getting a skinhead and sort of DMs and braces and that, and hoping maybe that would change things a bit. First it seemed quite good because there were quite a few skinheads at the school and I felt like I fitted in a bit more. But gradually I got more and more fed up with the bullying and the fighting and occasionally getting quite sort of roughed up.
Next pub up, going in an orderly direction. It's been attacked by West Ham supporters. There's large-scale disturbance in the street. There are no MP units available.
I mean, in the first year in the class, it soon becomes apparent who's the sort of leaders that sort of assert your position in the class, and I didn't really do that. I didn't feel it was worth it. I couldn't stand going in there, sitting in the classroom. All of us were unhappy sort of being there, and it's just the whole thing was too unpleasant, really. And so more and more I'd just stay at home, so saying I felt sick and not going in and bunking off lessons and things. And gradually I hardly made any appearances in school.
I don't think it did me any harm. In fact, I think it did me a lot of good. It teaches you to learn to live with other boys. And as you grow older, other men.
Hello, Peter, yes. Sure, hang on. Have you got the others lined up? Yeah, have to be sometime next week. Monday's ours. Tuesday, yeah, I could do Tuesday. No, look, no, there's no way I can do that time. Look, you know, I have to pick the kids up. I can do it earlier, but I have to be gone by 5:15, or I could do it in the evening. Right, 7:30. Okay, see you then. Bye now. It's not easy, but I have to do it. The pressure is always on for me to fix meetings at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, and sometimes it's very difficult to impress upon people that, you know, I've got something else to do, namely to pick up my children. I was a bus driver. I was working for London Buses before I was appointed as a full-time officer of the union, and the pressures of shift work and the rigidity of it, the lack of control over one's working day, was a major problem for me with a young baby. And one of the advantages of having the sort of control that I have over my working life is that I can build in the way I work to suit my needs as a caring father. For others, it's not so easy. Right then, tomorrow looks okay, no problem.
Tomorrow's all right, I'm going to
there might be a bit of a problem Thursday morning. I'm Cambridge, which means, so if you could take them. I should be able to pick up, and babysitter Thursday evening.
Babysitter Lizzie, yeah. I've got Lizzie.
No problems Friday. Okie doke?
Right.
Yeah? If there's any problem, I'll just have to get a message to you by
Yeah, right.
most men in my position, although men often play some role in caring for their children, they've got somebody more or less in the background who essentially plays a servicing role. It's not like that with Sally and I. Sally has a full-time job. She's a trade union official, just like myself, with a demanding job, and so therefore it's a 50% commitment because she has the same work commitments and needs as I do. And so in that sense, it's a partnership. I often have very stressful times at work. By the time I get back to pick the kids up at Sanders at 5:30, I'll know I've done more than a day's work, and I'll be looking forward to going out again in the evening to another meeting in town. But when I ring that doorbell and I hear them come into the door, I never experience anything but, you know, pleasure and anticipation at seeing their little faces on the door. And in some way, in a very real way, it puts so much of what I'm doing at work into the proper context. You know, there are very many implications to that for us, and we should continue pushing and promoting that initiative.
I believe it was conceded by the Director of Operations that that side of the training in all aspects of the job was lacking in most departments, and I believe we had an assurance that that would be put right.
But if I'm often in a position where I'm saying, well, sorry, colleagues, goodbye, I've got to pick up my children, there is a sort of pervasive feeling that, you know, Victor, well, he's not quite committed, not quite as committed as he should be, and therefore I'm not making my full contribution.
I would suggest it would be 50% plus one.
I work with several thousand bus drivers in the southeast of England, and since deregulation and privatisation that's been brought in by government policies over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been incredible pressure to work longer hours and often more on social hours. So it's not a simple equation. It's not that we can all be good fathers or caring fathers and, overnight. There are many factors that can strain and put pressure on people to divert them from those sorts of objectives.
Here, miners in the East Midlands have signed the first deal to allow 6-day working at a new pit.
Here, a junior doctor is suing his employers over what he calls the excessively long hours he has to work.
To vote for the move by the engineering union sharply steps up their campaign for a 35-hour week for their 2 million members.
Our members are now looking for shorter working week. They're looking for the long weekend. They're looking to go home early on a Friday. They want to be with their families. This is the message coming through to us.
That's the change that's taking place.
Productivity deals, often including unsocial hours and weekend shifts, were a big feature of the 80s. Hard work and high earnings were a theme of this money-mad decade.
No sitting down on your butt, the world don't owe you. No sitting down in a rut, I want to show you. Don't waste your energy on making enemies. Just take a deep breath and work your way up, less work.
Workers who protested against the upward drift in working hours were often portrayed as lacking in the enterprise spirit. Soaring house prices have also taken their toll. Overtime may be the only way to fund the mortgage increases. Employers have done little to hold down overtime. It's cheaper to work one person for longer than to employ two. And in the southeast, the scarcity of affordable housing has increased the attraction of commuting, adding hours to a working day. This is not a culture which is kind to families.
Work your way up, less work. Be proud, stand tall, touch the cloud. Man and woman, be free. Let's work, keep watching. Let's work, be proud, stand tall, touch the cloud.
days when I'm working away from home, I won't see the kids. When I leave in the morning, they'll still be in bed, and by the time I get home, they'll have gone to bed again, so I won't see them at all that day.
Well, I have an 8-year-old daughter who's obviously at school now. I don't see her in the mornings because I leave at 6:30. She probably doesn't rise until any time between 7 and 8, and I get home in the evening at 7:30. So by the time I get home in the evening, I'm very lucky. The trauma of homework is over. She is bathed and getting into bed, so I get the pleasant bit, the good night, how did the day go, and sometimes read to her.
Most of the time I feel like the travelling time is wasted. Obviously I'd rather spend it or I'd rather work so I could see my child in the evening. Everyone's going to work, so you have to accept that. But occasionally it's nice to be on a train for 2 hours a day and nobody can get to you, so it has its advantages.
I couldn't do my present job if I didn't work the hours I do and the travelling I do. It's obviously not necessary to do the job I do. I mean, I could do a different job, but I enjoy my work, and I accept that in some ways my family has to suffer as a result.
The pressure's not on me. I'm travelling and I'm away from the decisions that have to be made in the mornings, like are they well enough to go to school, and Mum has to do it on her own, which is a disadvantage. I'm happily working on the train for my 13-hour day.
My baby takes the morning train. He works from 9 till 5, and then he takes another home again to find me waiting for him. My baby takes the morning train.
If you didn't have a father, then it wouldn't be so exciting.
Wouldn't be so exciting? Is he exciting?
Yeah. He has to come back either 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. And by that time I would be asleep.
Well, I see him on Saturdays and Sundays most. I see him quite a lot, but not so much talking to me because he's normally doing his work, but I watch him.
He works for British Rail, and so I don't get to see him.
During the 80s, because the idea is you work hard and you play hard, and I think that's been encouraged both by the government and indeed by industry. One of the consequences of that is the need to, I suppose, devote Mondays to Fridays to work, and then weekends, holidays, leisure time to other things. And in fact, it's quite a tricky mental exercise suddenly at 6 or 7 o'clock on a Friday evening to say, right, I'm switching off and I'm moving into family mode now.
Mummy.
Are you spending so much time at work that you're becoming a stranger in your own home?
You're early, darling. Anything wrong? I don't think you've met our...
Then perhaps you should talk to us at British Telecom about how you can save time at work.
Family is the building block of society. It's a nursery, a school, a hospital, a leisure place, a place of refuge, and a place of rest. It encompasses the whole of society. It fashions beliefs. It's the preparation for the rest of our life, and women run it.
Yes, women are doing all these things, and increasingly they combine it with working outside the home. So what has this government, which calls itself the party of the family, been doing to help them? In 1980, it tightened up the Employment Protection Act to make it even more difficult for women to keep their jobs after having a baby, an automatic right elsewhere in Europe. In 1984, for the first time, a tax was imposed on workplace childcare, dramatically increasing the cost of workplace nurseries.
The strengths of a civilized nation depend on the natural authority of the family.
In 1986, ours was the only one of all the European community governments to vote against a proposal for a community-wide right to childcare leave for both fathers and mothers. In 1987, the maternity grant was abolished, and child benefit, the only element of the tax benefit system which specifically helps families, was frozen. As we move into the 90s and the number of school leavers falls, the government itself is urging women back into the workplace. As pressures on women increase, more mothers are expecting their partners to share the load.
So the father of the 1980s is trapped between the expectations of his boss, who's after his soul, and his family, who'd like a slice too. It isn't easy to be a good dad on the 5:59 from Paddington, but something's got to give. And one of the other things that the 1980s has been big on is divorce.
1 marriage in 3 now ends in divorce, and within 2 years, 50% of divorced fathers will have lost contact with their children. The 1980s has put fatherhood in the picture, but for an ever-increasing number of children, a picture is all there is. Daddy isn't home.
For it is that which can bring a little bit of heaven on earth.
Now, girl, I know the difference between right and wrong. I ain't gonna do nothing to break up our happy home. Oh, don't get so excited. I come home a little late at night, 'cause we only act like children when we argue, fuss and fight. Don't know me by now. If you don't know me, you will never, never, never know me. No, you won't. If you don't know me by now, you will never, never, never know me.
There's an article by Angela Phillips in this week's Listener in which she questions the reality of the new man. Next week, novelist and journalist Philip Norman takes an acerbic look at what he calls Fantasy Island, as that's what he feels Britain has become through the 80s. That's next week at 8:20.
On Sunday nights, a new series of a talk show which is called The Talk Show because it's all talk. Talking among themselves on the first few shows will be, among others, Robert Hughes, Dennis Potter, Helen McNeil, Arthur Miller, Maya Angelou, Glenda Jackson, David Mamet, and many more. The kind of people you talk about will be talking about the kind of things you talk about on The Talk Show, hence the title.